Hi, friends. Um, so we have a real treat today. I'm doing an interview with another astrologer, Karen White, and today we are talking about the states of Venus, and this is a special kind of Vedic astrology technique, and it's really exciting, and we're going to use some examples that will really illustrate these principles very well, and some examples from recent celebrities in the news, so you guys will know kind of what's going on here. And so I'm so excited to get started, and I'm just introducing my dear friend and colleague, Karen White from DivineTimeAstrology.com. And yeah, Karen, do you have anything you want to say or promote? Introduce yourself.
Oh, well, it's just great to be here with you, Laura.
Thank you.
I always love working with you.
I know it's been a while.
It has been, yeah. Now, this is something that comes up a lot when I do my Ready for Love reading, which is the one that I like doing relationships a lot, even though I do everything else too, but that's like my favorite thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the Avashtas, what we're talking about today, which means the conditions of the planet, so the planetary combinations and what that creates, the psychological aspect of Vedic astrology.
Mm-hmm.
Then Venus is a focal point. And it's really interesting. So when I see a person's chart, just by looking at Venus, I already know many things about the person before I talk to them.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
And it's always very interesting to hear them talk about how it's actually manifesting in their life in particular.
Yes.
It never stops being interesting to me.
It has a lot to say about the Avashta, or the state or the condition of Venus, has a lot to say about how a person is in relationships, how happy and fulfilled they will be in relationships. So just an extremely important aspect of the chart to analyze, so
yes,
and so we're going to get started on one example, or two examples actually, and these are Venus-Mars conjunctions. And I know I was mentioning, I think it was in the last video, I did some past life videos, and I was talking about how Venus-Mars, how I find Venus-Mars makes people either victims of violence or they perpetrate violence. And we're going to choose two examples right now, one that is very recently in the news, and actually it happened yesterday, and it's not the first time this has happened with a certain person, but we're going to talk about Alec Baldwin. And yesterday he just got into a confrontation with someone who parked in his parking space and was arrested, and I guess he punched him in the face or something. And this isn't the first time, obviously, but he's been in quite a few of those. And he has the Venus-Mars conjunction. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen so you can see him here. Here we go. Okay. So, Mr. Alec, so here we have his Venus-Mars conjunction in the second house, and the second house is the house of family, but it's just making him violent, period, and it can also make him the victim of violence. And then it's not really, it doesn't give an Avashta or a state to Venus, because Mars is neutral towards Venus, and Venus is neutral towards Mars. But just in general, I wanted to talk about this because I see this over and over again.
Me too.
Yeah, and it just makes people, violent, and violence is part of their life. So, have you seen that, Karen? Is that?
Oh yes, all the time. Every single time I see it together, and sometimes even just when Venus is in a Mars sign or Mars is in a Venus sign too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just together. And I find it interesting because Venus-Mars combination also creates an athlete, especially if it's connected to personal factors.
Yeah.
Most athletics, well, there are a lot of athletics. It requires a lot of exertion of energy, and oftentimes sports, for instance, can be violent.
Absolutely.
And so it can carry over, and you hear a lot, too, about athletes having great trouble in their personal relationships.
Right. Yeah, I never thought about
Domestic
that. Yeah.
violence and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. To answer your question, yes.
You know, that's interesting you were saying that because, you know, Venus is our ability to recuperate from exertion. You know, Venus is the comforter. Venus is the water element. Venus is the nurse. So if you're an athlete, you have to be able to recuperate from exertion pretty quickly. And when Venus and Mars together, I noticed you're right. You know, the Mars is the exertion of energy, and then Venus helps that person recuperate quickly. So yeah, it really makes sense.
Yeah, and so people who have this, they tend to be high conflict people, and that's what they're comfortable with. So their relationships can often be characterized by like verbal abuse, though they may not actually see it that way until a partner is like, okay, I've had enough of this, I'm out of here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because that's just their way. And so they're probably, and I've noticed something else very interesting too, that people who have Mars as the Upmakaraka, which means they're very Mars-like,
Mm-hmm.
they tend to marry each other. And I think because of that way of being, they have to be with somebody who understands it.
Oh, interesting.
Have you noticed that?
No, I haven't. I haven't really looked for it. I should.
I see it because I see it over and over again. I'm like, that's really interesting.
Oh, wow.
Mars is not a relationship planet.
No.
You know, he's not about, you know, warm, fuzzy stuff.
Not at all. Not at all. And then also, you know, Venus, or not Venus, but Mars in his chart is, what is it, agitated because it's being aspected by an enemy, by Saturn.
Yeah.
So his Mars is really frustrated anyway, and it's in a sign of Saturn, which is an enemy. So he's not very happy. The Mars is. The Venus is happy because Venus is Saturn is assigned to, or a friend to Venus, and
Yeah.
And then interestingly enough, we're going to mention that Saturn is currently right on top of Alex's ascendant. It's actually at 5 degrees 10 seconds of Capricorn, and Alec is 6 degrees 4 minutes of Capricorn. So it's kind of weird.
Right
He got arrested right when that was happening.
Yeah, so what happened with that? Because I didn't hear that.
Just somebody parked in his parking space, you know, a tenant, I suppose, and he got really angry. And there were pictures of it. He punched the guy in the face, and then he, like, pushed him up against the car and slammed him down head first on the car. I just saw pictures of it. So, yeah.
You know what? Isn't Mars also in Aquarius still?
Yeah, Mars is, yeah, it's very close to his Venus at 22 degrees, 48 minutes of Aquarius.
There you go.
So yeah, he's got double of it going on right now.
And then K2 has been there too.
K2 is about to move out. K2 is at 13 minutes of Aquarius, and it's moving into Capricorn, I think.
Okay. So would you consider that to be close enough to Mars to be aggravating it? Because they're both fiery. Kind of fiery.
Right. They get the same. Effects. K2 gives the effects of Mars, and yeah, definitely. It's passing over that Venus-Mars conjunction in the same sign. So
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of like finishing up, the K2 influence is giving him some karmas, past things that he has to reconcile in regards to those two planets. So,
right.
yeah, so that's kind of interesting that happened.
You know what else is interesting too is that with the Gemini sign aspect, the Moon and Mars are aspecting each other. And so Moon-Mars aspects also too just makes a person more emotionally excitable. They tend to be more, just more easily irritated. Do you know if he's still a drinker?
I don't know. It's because drinking, it's funny that hurts the liver or damages the liver, and the liver comes from the Latin word for livid.
Livid.
Yeah, and in Chinese medicine, the liver is where we store our anger.
Yeah.
So when you stop drinking, when you have serious alcoholics who stop drinking, they usually go through a lot of anger because they're not pushing it down. They're not making it go away with drinking, and so they get livid very easily. But also too, you have these mean drunks like what's it, that Jackson Pollock,
artist.
That artist. He was a really mean drunk, and just always drinking. And so it, can come out either or. You can get really mean when you're a drunk, or you get kind of happy. But then when you stop, you're very angry.
Well, the reason why I asked you that is because I was wondering if perhaps he had a hangover. Because one of the things that I would recommend for a client who has this kind of combination, and they're coming to an astrologer because they want to understand relationships better in themselves, I would say just try to avoid drinking at all and caffeine.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have Venus-Mars together, but my Venus is in a Mars sign. And
mine too, yeah.
Is it? And so I know that I have to be very, very careful with my diet because, fiery Venus is, well, let's just say it just makes me irritable. It makes me irritable. And so if you have those two planets together, it's like you really can't afford to aggravate your body at all. Anything that's going to, like really intensify your natural tendency to be impatient or irritable or, all those things that are not so great for a relationship.
Right, definitely. Your Venus is in Aries.
It's in Aries, yeah.
Yeah, mine too. So
yeah.
So did you quit drinking coffee completely?
Oh yeah, years ago. I drank it. I had one last cup of coffee at one of those Starbucks or a place like that, and it was a cappuccino. And I don't know what happened, but I was physically in agony for like 3 or 4 hours. Like I had to lay down because of all my muscles and everything. It's like they all just clenched.
Oh, wow.
It was really painful. And so that was the last time I had real coffee.
Oh, my.
I don't ever want to go through that again. It was like my body said, that's enough. You cannot have any more of this.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I'm allergic to it. I think I might be allergic to it. It might not just be the caffeine. Because even sometimes when I drink decaf, which I hardly ever do, but when I do, I don't feel very good. So I think it's possible.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's an allergy.
Ernst advised me to quit drinking coffee, and I did for a while. So I should try again.
Just to see how it makes you feel, because I know sometimes when I'll take a sip of coffee, I'll sneeze. Same thing with chocolate, which is really depressing.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Chocolate doesn't like me either. I love chocolate, but it doesn't like me.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm wondering, what's interesting about the Mars-Venus combination is that people who have that, they might have a harder time with the self-soothing, the self-comfort. And so
Mm-hmm.
they might do things like eat a lot of chocolate or drink, or, you know, it's
Right.
not necessarily
Right.
an addiction combination, but because there's that agitation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I believe it.
Yeah.
Um, so this is interesting too. We're going to talk about the next person. Her name is Christy Mack. She's a porn star, or was a porn star, and she was beaten up by her then boyfriend. I forgot his name, the Machine or something. I can't remember exactly. I think that was his nickname, and he's an MMA fighter.
Oh,
And
okay.
and he went to her house and found her with another man, so he beat both of them. But the man left, and he continued to beat on her and just really just beat the crap out of her and
Oh,
almost killed her.
oh my
And
God.
there were she had pictures of her bruises and everything, broken ribs in the hospital.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and so we wanted to talk about her for two reasons. One, she's a victim of violence. She also has the Mars-Venus conjunction in Cancer, and she has a shamed Venus, meaning that it's the shamed, it means lagita, that means shamed, and that is a state or an avasta of Venus. And so it means that she's ashamed around Venus. Venus causes her shame for some reason. And and that happens when you have a planet conjunct one of the nodes, either Rahu or Ketu, and also with the Sun or Saturn or Mars. If you have that conjunction, those conjunctions, that shames a planet.
Yeah.
And you carry shame around what that planet represents. And so that's one criteria of having a shamed planet. The second criteria is you have a planet with the Sun, Saturn, or Mars in the fifth house.
Yeah.
And the reason it's the fifth house is because
With Rahu or Ketu.
oh no, it doesn't have to be with Rahu Ketu. If
Oh,
it's in,
just sunset. Just sunset. Are you sure?
yep, I'm sure. Sun, Saturn,
Okay.
or Mars in the fifth house. If it's got to be in the fifth house though.
Right.
If you have a planet with
Oh,
one of
yes.
those,
That's right. Sun, Saturn. You're right. I'm sorry.
right, Sun, Saturn, or Mars. If you have a planet with one of those, like it's, let's say you have a Sun Mars conjunction in the fifth house, Mars will be shamed, and so will the Sun.
Mm.
And the reason that is because the fifth house is our creative intelligence, and it's what we want. We see the horizon, we see what we want, and we see perfection, and we see what we want to create. It's like a perfection of our creation, and we have very high ideals around this house. We have extremely idealistic, high ideals. So when you get planets in there, and they're with malefics, Sun, Saturn, or Mars, then these planets really want to live up to an ideal, but they can't. And so, nothing can live up to a perfect ideal. So you'll find these people are very ideological, and they feel shame because around that planet, whatever planet is being shamed, because they really want to live up to those ideals, but they can't.
Right.
So that's why you get it in the fifth house, in that, for that one criteria. And the other criteria being a planet with one of the nodes and Sun, Saturn, or Mars. So anyway, Christy Mack has this. She has Venus and Mars with K2, and so that Venus is shamed. And we just want kind of, being a porn star probably causes her, or did cause her, a lot of shame. She quit being a porn star because he asked her to, this guy who beat her up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and and then, you know, she said that he would kind of throw it in her face whenever they got into an argument that that
Wow.
she was a porn star, and that really made her feel bad, and that, you know, she was just a whore, quote unquote. Um, so obviously, you know, she did feel shame around that Venus.
It's interesting that she got into a relationship with somebody who would emphasize that shame.
Mm-hmm. And when you see that a shamed planet, what that means is you have to go through shame to realize that planet. You actually have to go through some shame to kind of express that planet and move through it, you know. Oh, and we wanted to point out the transits of that day.
That's right. You want to show your screen?
Yep. I'll do that here. Okay, can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So she was assaulted August 8th, 2014. And you'll notice that in her chart, she's got a Mars-Venus K2 conjunction in Cancer, ruled by the moon. During that transit, or during that day, the moon was exactly opposite her Mars and her K2, and exactly conjoined her Rahu. Well, not exactly. I mean, it's
close enough. Only 1 degree off.
It's 1 degree and something, but it's still, I mean, extremely close. So that activated those planets and that past karma. You know, especially with that moon ruling all of those Venus, Mars, and K2.
I'm seeing something else too. Look at this Mars-Saturn conjunction, sign aspecting Venus.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very closely too. It'd have to be like that 67, so like 23 degrees, you know, Mars would have to be, and it nearly is. So that also makes for a lot of frustration on that Mars. That Mars is debilitated too.
Right. It's very irritated Mars.
Yeah, but yeah, I just wanted to point out how...
No, not irritated Mars, sorry, irritated Saturn, but frustrated by Saturn. Mars is frustrated by Saturn.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy how that was activated with that moon doing that. I don't know her exact birth time. I just put in noon, but the, you know, that'll show up anyway. The moon is pretty much right on, and you can see. This is
true. So what would you say, Laura, about this K2 Mars-Venus combination? Because I know K2 Venus can be an involvement with pornography. It's only like one of the possible things it could be, but the K2 Mars-Venus thing, this is like a past life thing too.
Absolutely, definitely. You know, Venus-Mars together, like you said, it gives a lot of passion. And, you know, I see a lot of porn stars with a lot of Mars-Venus going on, not exactly always conjoined, but, you know, Venus in sign of Mars, Mars in sign of Venus with Rahu there or something to even further stir up the pot. But, you know, that K2 in the sign of Mars and Venus, she probably is coming from a past life of violence, of violence of some sort. You know, I don't know what house it's in because I don't know. You know, being ruled by in the sign of Cancer. Cancer is a royal sign. The moon is royalty, and you know, she could have been, you know, died in a violent way of, you know, being in some type of position of power, position of leadership, you know, like the royal court, or she could have perpetrated violence against someone, and this whole idea of her getting beat up is kind of the comeuppance, or maybe that karma needed to be rectified with with this guy. So, so that's why, you know, that's a great point that you made about the past life thing, because I just did some videos about that.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
About what's happening in her life now, like relationship-wise?
Yeah, she has a new boyfriend, and you know, seems to be happy, and you know, he's not beating her up, obviously. And the other guy, the man, he got quite a bit of time in jail. I don't even remember how long he got, maybe life.
Wow.
He actually beat her to an inch of her life, but he has a new girlfriend. He got a girlfriend in prison.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
You don't, it would be interesting to see his chart.
Yeah, it would. I thought I had it, but I didn't. I forgot his name, the machine or something like that. But and I just want to talk about the shame devastation. We'll talk about where is it? Merv Griffin.
Okay.
There he is. All right, so
I remember my parents watching the Merv Griffin show when I was growing up. I was always in the kitchen doing the dinner dishes, and I could hear everything that they were that he was saying on the TV.
You know, I actually really like Merv Griffin.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, there was something about his personality I really liked. I don't know what it was, but so it turns out, you know, we found out later that Merv Griffin is gay, or he at least bisexual.
Mm-hmm.
And
he was married, right? He was married at one point. He had a child. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. He had a daughter, and she he and his wife divorced, but he was accused of sexual harassment by some men that some hired help, and by somebody else too. I think some other like extra on one of his shows or something. I can't remember exactly, but he was definitely, you know, pointed to as being gay, and this was before it became widely accepted. You know, now there's no problem coming out, but back then it held a lot of stigma. So so he never admitted to it, and he never you know, came out fully. But he has the Venus shame devastation. So yeah,
Venus Rahu, and then Venus with Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, Mercury is helping Venus a bit.
Yes.
This combination here. Look at how close those three planets are. Venus, Rahu, Mars.
Yeah, yeah. That actually makes for somebody, I would say, very highly sexed.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't even know, you know, anything about his personal life too much, but I would say, you know, somebody that would need a lot of sex in his life, you know, to be honest.
Yeah, true. I wonder, that could also be a sex addiction, because Venus Rahu combinations means that the person has a struggle that they go through, and in terms of being able to comfort themselves, and soothe themselves, to find satisfaction in their life and in their relationship. So sorry about that.
No worries.
Anyway, so there's often an addiction that they have to work through. And
yeah,
so
yeah,
drugs,
definitely.
alcohol, or sex, or romance addiction even.
Yeah, I would say it's sex, because Mars is there.
Yeah,
you know, you've got Venus, Mars, and Rahu.
Right. And when I have a client who asks me, because sometimes people will ask me, they give me the birth data of the guy that they're involved with, and they want to know, well, will he cheat on me? Because they have reason to ask. You know, there are some behaviors there that were making them wonder. If they have Mars, Venus together, the chances are really high.
Oh, definitely.
They will, unless Jupiter is there, or K2. Sometimes K2 can restrain the person.
Yeah,
but usually,
not always.
Not always. Yeah, it depends on other factors too, but yeah, I would say, well, he may have a very difficult time being faithful to one woman for his whole life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't
I
want to
know.
say definitely. You don't know for
No,
sure.
I know.
Yeah.
There was, in Germany it says K2 aspecting needing arrested, but maybe it does subdue it a little bit, but I don't find that to be completely accurate all the time.
Yeah, or they could be like not acting on it, but nevertheless engaging in like perhaps watching a lot of porn or
Oh yeah,
something
true.
along those lines as a way to give it an outlet without actually being unfaithful.
Right.
So usually the woman or the partner in the relationship still feels like they're being cheated on when the person has this entire private sex life going on with pornography. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole different kind of discussion, actually.
Yeah, the second house too is involved with masturbation.
Oh, really?
Pornography and masturbation. Yeah, this is in traditional Western astrology.
Oh, is
When
it?
you have Mars there or Mars Venus there, then there usually is a very active private sex life going on too, as well as with the partner.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't know that about
Yeah,
that. No, I didn't.
so that's something to look for.
Okay, I'll remember that. Yeah, a lot to know about Merv. I wonder if he ever suffered from violence. I mean, we would never know, but uh, because of that Venus-Mars conjunction.
Also because of the time period he grew up in. He was born in 1925, right? All that stuff was really hushed up a lot more.
Right.
You're in the closet, all
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
And another guy I'll mention, I'm not going to put his chart up, I'll just mention him too. He also had the Shane Devasha, who was gay, who didn't come out until much, much later. Actually, he was outed. Again, he actually had a relationship going with a man for quite a long time, but he was never admitted to it. Nobody ever talked about it, but he was outed by a French magazine. And in 2003, and that's Richard Chamberlin.
Mm-hmm.
He was, on the Thornbirds. It was and he's a pretty well-known actor. But yeah, he didn't come out either. So there was kind of maybe some shame around that because of the societal mores at the time.
Right.
But now, there's no reason to be ashamed about that. But so, yeah.
So there might still be some, just because it depends on how your family,
Exactly.
how your family treats you because of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's an interesting thought, Laura, because now that it is more accepted and gay people can marry, and we're seeing gay couples and relationships now in TV shows, it's like becoming standard to see it.
Mm-hmm.
But yet if a person still has that in their birth chart,
there might be something going on with a family.
Yeah.
I actually know of a couple of people who are gay, but they're not out.
Mm.
And they're younger than me, so it's and they don't want to come out because of their family mainly.
Right. It could be the culture too. Sometimes it's the culture.
Well, they're American, they're
Are they? Okay.
Yeah. So it's not like there's there's not going to be any kind of huge uproar over that, but it's their family. One's Catholic, and I don't know the other one what he is, but yeah, that's the reason. That's the whole reason. So they do have that. I guess there is still stigma going on. So.
Right. You're making me remember a client I had too who asked me a horary question about it, whether or not it was a good time to come out. And he, as a teacher, he teaches young children. So he was worried about the effects that it would have at work. And then he has a group of friends who are religious. and he was worried about what they were going to think. And the horary showed that it wasn't not a good time yet for him to do that.
Oh, really?
There would have been repercussions, especially at work.
Oh, wow.
There would have been people above him who would not be happy about it, simply because he's working with children, right? And people, they don't understand a lot about homosexuality. Just because you're gay doesn't mean you're interested in children. That kind of thing. So, I told him to just not make an issue of his sexuality, because it's just not really, maybe, it's becoming more accepted, but I can see that it can still have serious repercussions for some people in certain situations.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So did it ever come out when there would be a good time for that, or?
I don't remember that part of it now, but it did show that the friends at first would be upset, but they would get over it.
Oh, okay.
Friends was like, yeah, that you can tell them, whatever. But work, not yet, because he hadn't been there long enough. He didn't have tenure. He didn't any of those kinds of things. I don't know. Do you have tenure when you're teaching young children, or is that just university? But he hadn't been there very long, so I was like,
okay. He hadn't had his job very long, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, well, I hope it works out for him eventually. So we'll just talk about Brad Pitt a little bit.
Okay.
Because he has the shamed Venus. And I'll just share that with you.
The other thing that always pops right to mind whenever I think of Brad Pitt or I see his chart is that in the nakshatras, he is the mongoose. The one nakshatra animal that doesn't have a mate.
Oh, wow. That's right.
Yeah, it's just the mongoose. Huh. And all the rest of the nakshatras, everybody has a mate.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. Yeah, you're right. He has quite a few, 3 planets in that nakshatra.
Yeah.
As far as that. But I did his chart when I was talking about Argala, how he has every single planet in Argala.
Wow.
Yeah, and then but yeah, he has a pretty good chart, except for that family, and his family's being destroyed, or he's going through real time with his family and Angelina Jolie. But I was just going to talk about that his Venus is ashamed, and he left his wife. His wife at the time was Jennifer Aniston, and he left her for Angelina, and that must have caused some problems. And a lot of people turned against really Angelina, but also him. I remember that, and because they thought they were just such a great couple, and they were married, and
they even look alike. Brad and Jennifer.
Yeah, right, they did.
They were like a real golden couple. I know.
Mm-hmm. And then
Angelina comes along.
Yeah, I used to actually really like Angelina, and it didn't bother me that much. I mean, people have their karma. It's just that's the way it is, and they had karma together, so that's what happened. But I'm sure that caused him a lot of inner turmoil. And now, what's going on with this divorce they're having, and Angelina just basically kind of kicked him to the curb and wants to, have the children all to herself, and, God only knows what he's feeling with this, but.
Yeah. So when you're talking about Venus being ashamed, you're talking about the Venus-Moon combination here with K2, or how are you explaining that?
The Venus-Mars and K2.
Okay, Venus-Moon, too, is not a good combination either.
No, that's not really. I mean,
Venus is pretty, though Venus is in a sign that he likes to be in, but never, and he's with a friend, Mercury, but everything else, really.
You know, all of those planets are shamed. Mercury, Moon, and Venus. They're all shamed planets. And then having, you know, he's very successful, and that has to do with all the Gemini stuff going on in his chart. But then, like, inside, he seems kind of a mess. You know, mentally and emotionally, he seems like a messy guy because, you know, there was this whole thing, the reason she gave why they got a divorce is he got abusive on an airplane. He got drunk and he got abusive. And so, you know, we never know what's really going on because they still lie in Hollywood about what's really happening with these people. But
well, all this is going on in his second house of what goes into the body. So somebody who has to hear with all this, I'd be surprised if they didn't if they never struggled with any kind of addiction or excesses.
Exactly. Exactly. And they're not going to talk about it unless he goes to rehab.
Right.
Then everyone knows about it, but they don't know about it if he's not, you know, actually putting it out there, showing up drunk at award ceremonies like Johnny Depp does.
Well, you know what's really interesting, Laura? When they got together, you know, they met on that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. and Mrs.
Smith.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that was a Mars movie. That whole movie was Mars.
Yeah, it was.
It was a Mars movie, and then she has Mars really strong too. She's got it up in the 10th with her moon in Aries.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And he's got it here exalted. I was thinking it was like the whole relationship was characterized by Mars. It was like Mars brought them together.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mars, of course, not being a relationship planet, he's not good in the second house here. This is a Kuja dosha thing, too. So, and then Mars is the one that took them apart as well.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, when all that was going on, or that was actually a couple months ago when Mars was transing Capricorn, I was seeing that, you know, they had actually gone to court or something, and they, you know, were fighting about the children, and that's when Mars went retrograde and went, you know, right into Capricorn. But you'll notice, you know, he's got Saturn. Saturn is about to hit Mars and K2, and then Pluto. Pluto's about to hit his moon and Venus. Yikes!
Wow.
Yikes!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So basically, well, when Mars was going through Capricorn and he was having a Mars return, is that when things, I don't remember the timing on when things started really falling apart with Angelina.
Oh, well, that was, it's been a couple years. You know, they've been fighting back and forth.
Has it been a couple years now?
Yeah, over custody and mainly over custody. But I just kind of saw, you know, I open up, you know, when I open up the internet, I see some news about them, and it's always, you know, they had to go to court, and it was when Mars had gone retrograde into Capricorn. It just, you know, went a couple of degrees or something. But that's when they were fighting. It was definitely something going on. So it activated that Venus and some of those planets.
When did it start, like around 2016? Yeah. Because I'm just looking at Angelina's. I'm looking at her dasa time periods.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to see, you know, perhaps what could have triggered it off.
You know, Angelina's really into Brad, actually. But,
yeah.
But she's kind of, you know, her love life, you know, they say Venus and Mars, when you have Venus-Mars conjunction, Venus is starved. I'm sorry, Venus and Saturn. Venus and Saturn conjunction.
Starved, yeah.
So,
and yeah, we watched her over the years too with dealing with that. Like she's been through some addictions and some strange relationships and strange things happening in relationships. But I think it's when she started focusing outside of herself and her relationships, and getting involved in things going on in other countries, and becoming I don't know if she actually became an ambassador, but she was involved in that kind of work. That seemed to be what really helped her to deal a lot more with that Venus-Saturn combination.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
I did.
Yeah, because Saturn is the 7th house lord of foreign countries.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, she's been through quite a lot of men, and different kind of phases in her life where she kind of clinged to certain things to emotionally get her through. Now it's humanitarianism. Before that, it was kids. Before that, it was men, and strange, weird, like with that guy, Bob Thornton.
Right.
So yeah.
She's an interesting person. But it doesn't surprise me at all that she has Venus in the ascendant, because she's still absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. Yeah.
She's really beautiful.
Yeah, she is.
So who do you want to talk about next?
Oh, well, I think we've been going for a while.
Have we? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's...
That's probably enough for this one video, huh?
Right. It's going to be called... and talk about Venus, how Venus acts being ashamed. So, so yeah, so that's it for, we're going to probably continue this on and talk about more states of Venus later, or other planets being shamed, especially the moon and the sun. Those are kind of difficult, especially the moon, because the moon is our mind. And when the moon is shamed, it's kind of difficult because the person feels ashamed. And they try to cover that up with all kinds of different things. So we can do some charts on that as well eventually.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, moon-starving Venus is also a really interesting one.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we should talk about that one as well. And we can, in Angelina. But, so yeah, thank you guys for watching, and so just remember to subscribe and like and check out Divine Time Astrology. That's Karen's website. And so till next time, bye-bye.